December's icy wind cut through Thomas Whitmore's expensive wool coat and pierced his body, yet he barely felt the cold. At 58, the tech billionaire was used to being insulated from harsh weather, everyday struggles, and inconvenience. His penthouse apartment was always perfectly warm, and a chauffeur-driven car took him from door to door. His world existed inside a secure bubble of comfort and control. But tonight, something had pushed him outside that bubble. Maybe it was the emptiness of his vast apartment, where his footsteps echoed off marble floors. Maybe it was the photographs of his late wife, Catherine, gone for 5 years now, her smile frozen in happier times. Or maybe it was simply the weight of another year ending, another lonely holiday season despite having billions. Riverside Park lay under a fresh blanket of snow, transformed into something almost magical by the falling flakes. Street lamps cast a golden glow over the white ground. Most sensible people had already gone home to warmth and dinner. Thomas had no real destination. He was just walking, letting the cold air clear his mind of deals, numbers, and negotiations. That was when he saw them. Beneath a street lamp on a bench sat a young woman, perhaps 30, her blonde hair tied back simply. She wore a thin red dress, far too light for the weather, yet she didn't seem to notice the cold. Beside her were 2 small children, a girl around 6 with blonde pigtails and a pink sweater, and a boy no older than 4 wearing a beige knit outfit. All 3 were barefoot, their small shoes neatly lined up under the bench. Thomas stopped. Something about the scene held him still. The woman was holding a wrapped sandwich, and as he watched, she carefully divided it into 3 pieces. They were not equal. 2 larger portions went to the children, and the smallest piece she kept for herself. The children accepted their food quietly, without complaint or request for more. They leaned close to their mother, seeking warmth as much as nourishment. Thomas felt himself moving toward them, pulled by something he couldn't name. As he approached, the woman looked up. She was beautiful, but dark circles under her eyes told a story of exhaustion and worry. Still, when she looked at her children, her face softened with love. "Excuse me," Thomas said gently, stopping at a respectful distance. "But are you all right? It's very cold out here." Her shoulders tensed, instinctively protective. "We're fine, thank you," she replied, polite but cautious. "I don't mean to intrude," Thomas continued softly. "My name is Thomas. I was just passing through the park and Christmas is close. The cold is severe and your children aren't wearing shoes." Her eyes filled with tears, though she quickly blinked them back. The little girl reached out and patted her mother's arm in comfort, a gesture so tender and mature that it made something ache in Thomas's chest. "We're waiting," the woman said at last. "There's a shelter 3 blocks from here. They open their doors at 7. We came early to make sure we get beds for the night. If you arrive late, sometimes there's no space left." Thomas checked his watch. It was barely 5:30. Another hour and a half in the freezing cold. "My name is Claire," the woman went on, as if a dam had broken. "Claire Morrison. These are my children, Lily and Jack. We've been staying at the shelter for 2 weeks. Before that, we lived in our car for a month. And before that," she shook her head and fell silent. "It doesn't matter anymore." Thomas knelt down in the snow so he was at the children's eye level. They looked at him seriously, cautiously, children who had learned far too early to be wary of strangers. "Hello, Lily. Hello, Jack," he said warmly. "It's very nice to meet you. That sandwich you're sharing looks delicious." "It's peanut butter," Jack said shyly. "Mommy says it has protein." "That's very important," Thomas agreed solemnly. He looked back at Claire. "There's a cafe near the park. It's warm and they make excellent hot chocolate. Would you allow me to buy dinner for you and your children? I promise I'm not trying to." He searched for words that wouldn't sound arrogant or pitying. "I'm just someone who wants to help. No strings attached. Just a hot meal and a warm place to sit until the shelter opens." Claire studied his face carefully. Thomas knew how he must look, his expensive coat, his polished shoes, every detail signaling a different world. "Why would you do that?" she asked quietly. Thomas considered the question. "My wife passed away 5 years ago," he said. "We never had children, though we wanted them. Her name was Catherine. She volunteered at shelters and food banks. She used to come home and tell me about the people she met, the families struggling to survive. I wrote checks, big checks, and told myself I was helping, but I never really saw what she saw. I never truly understood. He paused. Tonight, I think I'm starting to. Please let me buy you dinner. Claire looked at her children's hopeful faces, and Thomas saw the moment her resistance gave way. All right, she said softly. Thank you, that's very kind of you. The cafe was warm and bright, decorated for Christmas. The owner, Mrs. Chen, took one look at the barefoot children and disappeared into the back. She returned moments later with thick socks and slippers. They belong to my grandchildren, she said briskly. They leave things here all the time. Please keep them. Thomas ordered generously. Hot chocolate for the children, soup, sandwiches, pasta, bread, fruit. Claire protested at first, but he gently insisted. When was the last time you had a full meal? He asked quietly. Thursday, Claire admitted. It was Jack's birthday. I spent a little extra on hamburgers. That had been 3 days ago. As they ate, Claire's story emerged in pieces. She had been a nurse, working night shifts while her children stayed with her mother. Then her mother suffered a stroke and needed full-time care. Claire quit her job to look after her. Her savings vanished. Bills piled up. The small apartment she could barely afford became impossible to keep. Her ex-husband, the children's father, had disappeared years earlier and offered no support. I've applied for assistance, Claire explained in a low voice so the children, now happily coloring with pages Mrs. Chen had given them, wouldn't hear. But everything takes time. Housing waitlists, childcare subsidies, all waitlists. I'm trying to get back on my feet to find work that lets me keep my children safe, but it feels like climbing out of a pit while someone keeps shoveling dirt back in. Thomas listened, truly listened. In his world, problems had solutions. Money fixed things. But Claire's situation wasn't something you could solve by throwing cash at it. It was about a broken system, about families balanced on a knife's edge between safety and disaster. Where's your mother now? Thomas asked gently. At Greenview Nursing Home, Claire said. Medicaid covers most of it, thank God. I visit when I can, but it's across the city and bus fare adds up. The kids don't understand why we don't see Grandma more often. Her voice trembled. They don't understand a lot of things, like why we don't have a home right now or why Christmas might be different this year. Lily looked up from her coloring. Mommy says Santa knows where to find kids, she said with absolute conviction. Even at shelters, she says he has that kind of magic. Something broke inside Thomas. Your mom is absolutely right, he said firmly. Santa is very good at finding children who deserve gifts. After dinner, Thomas walked them to the shelter. The children were warm and full for the first time in days. Claire carried their damp shoes in her hands. At the shelter door, she turned to him. I don't know how to thank you, she said. Tonight, the food, the warmth, the kindness, it means more than you know. Thomas pulled out his business card. I'd like you to have this, he said. Not because I expect anything, but because, if you're willing, I'd like to help more. Please call me tomorrow. Let's see what I can do. Claire took the card with trembling hands. Her eyes widened as she read it. Whitmore Technologies, you're Thomas Whitmore, that Thomas Whitmore. Just Thomas, he said gently. Please call. That night, back in his vast apartment, Thomas couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Lily and Jack's serious faces, their careful gratitude for small kindnesses. He heard Claire's steady, dignified voice, never complaining, never blaming, just trying to survive. At 2 a.m, he went into his study. By dawn, he had made dozens of calls, sent countless emails, and set several plans in motion. If wealth and influence couldn't help a struggling family, what were they for? Claire called late the next morning, hesitation in her voice. Mr. Whitmore, this is Claire Morrison. You said I should call. I'm very glad you did, Thomas said warmly. Claire, I've been thinking about your situation. I want to help, but in a way that respects your dignity and independence. Would you be willing to meet me today? There's someone I'd like you to talk to. They met at Thomas's office, where his head of human resources, Patricia Reynolds, waited with a warm smile. Patricia had been Catherine's closest friend and had worked with her on charity projects for years. Claire, Patricia said kindly, Thomas told me you're a nurse. As it happens, Whitmore Technologies has a large occupational health department. We provide on-site medical services for our employees. We're currently looking for nurses for our evening clinic. The position includes full benefits, housing assistance, and childcare support. Would you be interested in interviewing?" Claire's hands shook as she held the job description. "This sounds too good to be true," she whispered. "I don't understand why you're doing this." "Because everyone deserves a chance," Thomas said simply. "Because circumstances shouldn't define a future. And because my wife would have moved heaven and earth to help you, and I owe it to her memory to do the same." The interview was a formality. Claire was qualified, professional, and desperately needed the opportunity. She started work the following week. Thomas didn't stop there. He called the manager of a mid-range apartment building owned by his company. "I need a 2-bedroom apartment available immediately," he said. "Furnished, fully stocked. Make it welcoming." He arranged gift certificates from a children's clothing store. He called Greenview Nursing Home and set up transportation services so Claire could visit her mother regularly. He enrolled Lily in a nearby elementary school with before and after-school care that fit Claire's schedule. When he told Claire about these arrangements, she broke down. "I can't accept all this," she sobbed. "It's too much. I don't deserve it." "Stop," Thomas said gently. "You deserve stability. Your children deserve safety and peace. There's no debt here, Claire. Your only responsibility is to do your job and take care of your family. That's all I want." "But why?" Claire asked through tears. "You don't even know us." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "My wife and I had everything money could buy," he said. "But we never had the one thing we wanted most, a family. After Catherine died, I buried myself in work. I told myself that growing the company, creating jobs, donating to charities was enough, that I was making a difference." He looked at her steadily. "But that night in the park, I realized I was helping from a distance, writing checks but never truly seeing people. Your strength, your love for your children, the way you held your family together in impossible circumstances, it showed me what real strength looks like. You're giving me as much as I'm giving you. You're reminding me why this all matters." On Christmas Eve, Thomas stood outside the apartment building, arms loaded with gift bags. With Patricia's help, he'd made sure everything was age-appropriate and thoughtful, dolls and books for Lily, building blocks and stuffed animals for Jack. There were practical things, too. Winter clothes, school supplies, kitchen essentials. He knocked softly. Claire opened the door and Thomas was stunned by the change. She looked refreshed, her eyes bright, her smile genuine. Behind her, the apartment glowed with warmth. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with paper chains and handmade ornaments. "Thomas," Claire said, hugging him, "please come in. The kids have been asking about you." Lily and Jack ran toward him, their earlier shyness gone. They excitedly talked about their new school, new friends, and new home. Their happiness was contagious. "Mommy says you're our Christmas angel," Lily announced seriously. "She says you saved us." Thomas knelt down and set the gifts aside. "No, sweetheart, your mom saved you. She kept you safe and loved you even when things were hard. She's the hero of this story. I just got the chance to help a little." That evening, Thomas stayed for dinner, simple spaghetti that Claire insisted on making despite his protests. They ate together at the small kitchen table, Claire, her children, and Thomas. And for the first time in 5 years, Thomas didn't feel alone. Later, after the children were asleep, Claire and Thomas sat in the living room with coffee. "I got a call from my mother's nurse today," Claire said softly. "They told me someone arranged private care, better medication, and physical therapy. They wouldn't say who, but I know it was you." Thomas didn't deny it. "She's your mother. She took care of you, and now you're taking care of your children. That's how it should be. Let me help take care of her." "I'll pay you back," Claire insisted. "It might take years, but I'll repay every cent." "I only want one payment," Thomas said firmly. "Pass it on. One day, when you're stable and safe, when you have extra to give, help someone else. That's all." Claire nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Catherine must have been an extraordinary woman," she said gently, "to create this much love even after she's gone." "She was," Thomas agreed. "She believed wealth was a responsibility, not a privilege. She believed in truly seeing people, not just their circumstances. I forgot that after she died. You helped me remember." As months turned into years, Claire rose through the ranks at Whitmore Technologies, eventually becoming head nurse of the occupational health department. She saved money, built stability, and created the safe life she'd dreamed of for her children. Lily excelled in school and developed a passion for science. Jack discovered a talent for music, his laughter filling the apartment that had become a true home. Thomas became an essential part of their lives, not as a benefactor, but as family. He attended Lily's school plays and Jack's music recitals. He joined them for Sunday dinners, taught Jack chess, and helped Lily with science projects. The empty penthouse mattered less than the warm apartment where he was always welcome. He founded the Catherine Whitmore Foundation, dedicated to helping homeless families. Claire served on the board, offering the perspective of someone who had lived it. Together, they created programs that addressed not just immediate needs but systemic problems: job training, affordable childcare, mental health services, housing support. On the 5th anniversary of that icy night in the park, Thomas hosted a small event honoring families who had successfully transitioned out of homelessness with the foundation's help. Claire stood beside him, watching families share their stories, both of them in tears. "We're making a difference," Claire whispered. "Real, lasting change." "We are," Thomas agreed, "one family at a time." That evening, as Thomas walked through Riverside Park, the same path he had taken 5 years earlier, he stopped at the bench where he had first seen Claire and her children. Snow fell softly, just as it had that December night, but everything else had changed. He was no longer alone. He had purpose beyond profit margins. He had people who mattered, who depended on him, not for his money, but for his presence. Claire had given him that gift, the gift of connection, meaning, family. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily, now 11 and wise beyond her years. "Don't forget dinner tomorrow. Jack is making his famous terrible cookies again. We need you here to pretend they're good." Thomas smiled as he typed back, "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As he walked on, he thought about that moment years ago when he had stopped to talk to a struggling mother and her barefoot children. The smallest act of kindness, dinner and conversation, had changed everything. Catherine had always been right. The greatest wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It's measured in lives touched, families helped, and moments of genuine human connection. Thomas had spent 5 years forgetting that truth after her death. Claire and her children had helped him remember. The snow continued to fall, transforming the park into something beautiful and new, just as one cold evening had transformed all their lives. Thomas pulled his coat tighter and headed home, not to his empty penthouse, but to the apartment where Claire, Lily, and Jack were waiting with terrible cookies, warm laughter, and the kind of love money could never buy. He thought this was the best investment of his life, not because he had saved a family, but because in saving them, they had saved him too.